Do you want to make dope AI video animations like this? So this is YouTube. What up, what up? I am Tyler, better known as jboogx, or as most people on Instagram know me as jboogx.creative. I am a freelance creative director, videographer, and editor, and for the past 8 months, I have been obsessed with all things AI, video, and animation, and this is my YouTube channel. In this video, we're gonna dive into AnimateDiff and ComfyUI. If you don't know what that is, no worries, it's all good. I have a couple really great resources that I'm going to recommend if you are a complete beginner. This video is going to be if you are more intermediate and advanced, or at least a little familiar with AnimateDiff and how to navigate ComfyUI. Now, if you are a total beginner and you have no idea what AnimateDiff or ComfyUI actually are, the links in the description below are going to take you to 2 places. One is going to be a really great article written by Inner Reflections AI, and that article will explain how to get started with a very bare bones basic video to video workflow that my workflow was built on. So once you go there and you understand that, come back here. The second link is going to be to my good friend EnigmaticE's YouTube channel, where he has a video tutorial on how to get ComfyUI installed and running on your machine. Go there, do that, come back to this video. Now, between both of these resources, it should be more than enough to get you up and running and at least feeling a lot less, about ComfyUI, because let me tell you, when I started doing this and working in this specific program a couple months ago, I had never worked with a node-based workflow before, and man, it stressed me out. Every time I would open up Comfy and look at the node graph, I got anxiety. So I'm right there with you if that's how you're feeling. However, Inner Reflections article and EnigmaticE's YouTube channel really helped me out. Those 2 resources, put them together, you guys will be up and going in no time and you'll be creating videos. But enough talking, let's hop into the workflow. To download this workflow that we're about to walk through, you're going to have to go to civitai.com and you're going to have to create an account. You cannot download the workflow unless you have an account on the website. This is going to be the page where you download it from. Once you create an account, everything is free. There's no catch to any of this. You're just going to go ahead and click this download button. Make sure you're on the most current version. At the time that this video is posted, this will say version 3.0. And when you download it, it's going to be a PNG file. All you're going to have to do is open up ComfyUI and actually drag the PNG file that you downloaded into your browser window, and then all of this will load. It's not a JSON file, it is a PNG file. The PNG file is the workflow. Now, the first time you load this, you will probably have a bunch of red nodes, especially if you're used to Comfy, and it's gonna look super scary and it's gonna tell you there's a bunch of errors. Don't worry. Go install the ComfyUI manager, follow the links I put down below, learn how to install it, install the ComfyUI manager. Once you have your ComfyUI manager, you're gonna click this manager button on the right-hand side on your ComfyUI menu, and you're going to click install missing custom nodes. You click that, and it will literally download and install everything you need to run this, with the exception of the image save node. And to download and install the image save node, you're going to click install custom nodes, and you're going to search for WAS, and you're going to install the WAS node suite. You're going to want to get to at least beginner level and get this stuff installed using the links in the description before you attempt my workflow. Disclaimer, back to the video. All right, everyone. So this is the jboogx.creative and machine learner vid to vid AnimateDiff workflow version 3. I'm very excited about what this has evolved into for everything AI video and animation, especially the stuff that I do with the dance videos. This workflow can do almost anything that I've been able to think of. Not only does it do video to video, it can also do text to video. It can do the QR code image where you're basically feeding it a black and white alpha mask, and it creates the image in the shape of whatever is white in that alpha mask. You have a 4-image IP adapter, so you can use up to 4 reference images to influence your animation. You have the prompt scheduler, so you can do multiple prompts and travel them and keyframe them. You have up to 5 LoRAs. You have all your control nets in your low resolution version. It has an upscaler that then goes into another control net pass, so that when your video upscales to the higher resolution, since it's running through another diffusion process, we are not losing detail and your animation doesn't get out of control because you're still applying the control nets to it. If you don't know what any of that or a portion of that means, no worries, we're gonna go through this block by block right now. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we dive into this. Like I said, if you're a complete beginner, please go visit the resources that I have listed in the description, both the article written by Inner Reflections AI, as well as the how to set up ComfyUI and install the ComfyUI manager by Enigmatic E. If your ComfyUI does not look like this with the straight lines, but you would like it to, well, that I can show you right now. So if you look at your little ComfyUI menu that will be stuck to your screen over here on the right, and you click the gear icon, this is going to bring up your options. Depending on what nodes you have installed from your Comfy Manager, your option list might be different than mine. That being said, we all have this thing, link render mode. Mine right now are set to straight. If we set them to spline, this may look a little bit more like what you are used to seeing in ComfyUI, and it looks like our node tree was just attacked by the spaghetti monster. Now, even though looking at this stresses me out and gives me extreme anxiety, when it comes to hooking up nodes and reconfiguring and moving things around, this is actually more ideal because you can see very clearly where each individual strand is going to. When I am just in work mode and I'm not moving nodes around and I am just making a video or an animation, I will always keep this on straight. This gives me the nice clean pipeline. It is a pleasure to work in. I love it. Linear, some people like this. I don't really care for it. It's like a cleaned up version of the splines. I would actually prefer this over the splines, I think. But again, the splines are good just for hooking stuff up. But when it comes time to work and you're just zeroed in and trying to dial in an animation, do yourself a favor and set that to straight so you too can have a ComfyUI that is as clean as your bedroom, hopefully. All right, you're also starting at the very beginning here. Box number 1, if you notice, every group here is numbered. Now, you can do stuff in whatever order you want, but I did want to make this a little bit more approachable for people that get stressed out using ComfyUI the way that I did in the beginning. So, box number 1, your low-res inputs, aka your base video. So, this upscale image node right here, you don't got to touch or change nothing about that. The width and the height are the resolution that you would like this video to come out to. Now, if you really want to, you could run this in 720p. I don't like to do that. I always run my animations in a 512 resolution for the low resolution or the first pass. Most of what I make is specifically geared for Instagram and social media, so I'm working in a 9:16 vertical format, which almost everyone is now. My favored resolution is 512 by 896. So this will be the default resolution when you download the workflow. Now, the next box, the load video, this is where you are going to choose the video you would like to upload. Simply click choose video to upload and then browse your folders and figure out what video you want to upload. The video does have to be under 100 megabytes. Keep that in mind. Sometimes my videos are larger because I export everything in really high quality. I have to go back and export it at just a little lower, which doesn't really affect anything, but you just need to get it under 100 megabytes, which for most people should not be an issue whatsoever. Also in this box, the force rate, you shouldn't have to touch. The force size, leave that on disabled. The frame load cap, this is important. This is how many frames you actually want AnimateDiff to render at the end of your animation. If you leave this on 0 and you put in a 30-second long video, it is going to render the entire 30-second long video. If you change this to 50, it is only going to spit out the first 50 frames. Now, best practice, before I run an entire video, I always do a 50 frame test. Why 50? Why not 20? 50 frames on my 4090 PC takes me roughly 3.5 to 5 minutes to render. 50 frames is enough movement in the test to tell me if my ControlNets settings and the model are good and the animation looks good. I don't think I've ever gotten a good 50 frame test, rendered the whole animation out, and then the animation was bad. The 50 frames has always told me what I needed. So that is frame load cap, aka how many frames of an animation you want the video to render. Skip first frames if you want to test a different part of the video. Well, what I would do normally is open up the video in Premiere and look at it by frame count and see like what frame number is what part. And if there's a certain part of the video I want to test, maybe the movement is really complicated or whatever, and I want to test, frame 200 to 250, I would skip the first 200 frames. It'll start on frame 201 and a frame load cap of 50. So it's going to render out 50 frames from the 201st frame of the video. Make sense? I think makes sense. Now, select every nth. This is how many frames do you want it to continuously render. 1 means it is going to render every single individual frame of the video. If you select every nth to 2, then it's going to render every second frame of the video and so on and so forth. If you're doing stuff like dance, it is best, just animation in general, it is always a best practice to render every frame if your GPU and your computer can handle it. It's going to give you the most accurate reel-to-motion video in your animation that you can get. It's going to show you a preview of your video. Don't mind me. This video I made was stupid. You'll see at the end of it, but this is just me flexing after working out. Underneath that, the last 2 in the load video box in our number 1 is our load checkpoint. This is going to be connected to the checkpoint folder in your ComfyUI directory. This is where you store your models and your checkpoints that you would download from a place like Civitai. This is the list of models that I have downloaded that I use. For this video in particular, we used Photon V1. You shouldn't have to change anything else in this box, and your load VE node. You're going to need to download and put a VE in the VE folder directory of your ComfyUI folder. The VE is essentially like the contrast, color correction, like it just makes the images better, but you need to have a VE loaded or nothing will work. That is group 1, your low res and base video input. All right, group 2A, your AnimateDiff nodes. These are very important because this is what is making your animation come to life. Your AnimateDiff loader, this is the important one. This is where you're going to select your AnimateDiff motion module. Now, I would just suggest right off the bat going with AnimateDiff V3. This just came out right before Christmas. It gives you incredibly smooth animation and a lot of detail in the animations. So in everything you see from me now, you're seeing AnimateDiff V3. Before that, I was using Temporal Diff or the Motion Module V2. Your uniform context options, not gonna lie, don't know 100% what these do, but I know that I've never had to change the numbers and they work for me just fine, just the way they are. The AnimateDiff LoRA loaders, these are your motion LoRAs. So if you want to motivate a zoom in motion or a zoom out motion or a rolling clockwise or rolling counterclockwise, pan up, pan right, pan left, pan down. If you want those type of motions in the animation, you're going to select those and you're going to give them a strength. A strength of 1 is insane. A strength of 0.5, pretty good place to start. If I use them, I usually start at like 0.2 to 0.35. but I very rarely actually use them. Even though these say V2, these actually work and are compatible with AnimateDiff V3. So have no fear. This is your AnimateDiff nodes. For almost every video that I do, I don't have to touch these. I don't mess with them unless I'm doing something very specific in my animation. All right, guys, box 2B, the prompt, one of the most important parts of this whole thing. So we're not going to go over prompt traveling too much here. We're not really going to talk about prompt scheduling. I'm just going to give you a few notes to make sure that nothing in this box actually breaks when you go to run your animation. So the green box, the batch prompt schedule, this is where the meat of your prompt is going to go. The syntax here is extremely important. I cannot stress that enough. The syntax means the way that it is typed out and written in the box. So notice quotations, frame number, quotations, semicolon, quotations, prompt, quotations, comma. It is the same no matter how many prompts you have in there, but whatever the last prompt is in your batch prompt scheduler, you need to erase the comma at the end of it. If you accidentally leave a comma there, you're going to get an error when you go to run your animation. So that is super important. While we're not going to jump into prompt traveling right now or keyframing, the number in the quotations here is the frame of the video that this prompt will take place. Because we are using a batch prompt scheduler, you need to have at least 2 prompts with 2 keyframes in here for this whole thing to run and the animation to go through. 0, I just put frame 400 just because 400 is a random number, and I copied and pasted the same prompt, made sure to erase the comma at the end of the last prompt. To the left of it, we have our pretext node. The pretext means that whatever is in here is going to be placed in front of whatever your prompt is. I have sharp in quotations along with consistent color scheme. That means before all of this, the meat and potatoes of my prompt is going to be sharp, consistent color scheme, and then shirtless, the strongest man in the universe, blah, blah, blah. The app text, you could probably guess it. These are words that are coming at the end after whatever your prompt in your batch prompt scheduler is. So these 2 nodes, you're going to put in all your descriptors or just like the little detailed things, highly texturized, masterpiece, best quality, detailed, all that stuff, that goes in these 2. And then the batch prompt scheduler is only the specifics of your prompt. Now, the red box is your negative prompt. This is where you would put any of your embeddings or textural inversions. If you are using any embeddings or textural inversions, you have to use the syntax that I have here with embedding, semicolon, and then the name of that embedding file. If you don't know what those are, we'll talk about those in a future video. And then after those, I have just my regular negative prompt, blurry, nipples, NSFW, nude, naked, simplified, low resolution. Just things you don't want to see in your animation. We are going to come back and talk about the IPAdapter right after we talk about LoRAs. All right, so box number 3, the LoRAs. I have 5 LoRa nodes in here, and anything purple that you see means that I have those nodes bypassed. It just means that everything is going to travel right through them and skip them. That's because right now on this specific video, I only have 1 LoRa activated, and that is this retro anime LoRa. My best practice for LoRa, so I don't get too lost in the weeds with trying to figure stuff out, is I leave the strength clip value at 0, and I put the strength model value at 0.35. Just having to slide this value around gives me a result much similar to when I use LoRAs in just generating images with Automatic 1111, or with how we used to use LoRAs in Warp Fusion, if you're familiar with that. If I wanted to use a second LoRa, all I would do to unbypass this is right-click the node and click bypass again, and it activates. I want to turn that back off. So right click and bypass. Don't have to worry about it. You have 5 LoRAs that you can put in your animation. Now, the IPAdapter. This one can be a little difficult for people to get set up sometimes. I'm going to walk you through it. Hopefully you can get it. So the IP adapter allows you to use up to 4 reference images to inject those reference images into your animation, and it is incredibly powerful for getting your animation to actually be exactly what you want it to be. This particular video, in this example, I was trying to turn myself into a combination of Giga Chad and a very angry Super Saiyan Goku, because why not, right? So, even though you can use up to 4 images, if I'm only using 2 images, because we don't bypass or turn any of these off, I actually just put the same images twice. So we have 2 Giga Chads and we have 2 Gokus. The nodes that these are connected to, these prepare image for clip vision nodes, these are cropping your IP adapter images. So notice you can select top, bottom, left, right, center, or pad. Top will make the IP adapter crop into the top part of the photo, the center part of the photo, the bottom part of the photo. We don't want that. Or the left or the right. Pad will take the entire image. I placed these preview image nodes to the side here so that once you hit Q prompt and it runs through your IP adapter, it will show you exactly what the crop looks like so you can see what part of the image you're pulling the style from. That way, if you see and you're like, oh snap, it's only pulling his head, but you actually want the body, you can cancel your cue and then you can change your crop position and get that how you want. Now, I've never personally used the sharpening at this point, so I always leave that at 0. The encode IP adapter image, all of these are hooked up into this. These weights stay at 1. I don't mess with them. The less variables I have to mess with, the better. If this IP adapter plus thing is changed to false, everything will break. It's not going to run. Make sure that is turned to true. And that runs up into your apply IP adapter from encoded node. This one is important. This is where you're selecting the actual weight and strength of the IP adapter that's getting injected into your animation. I personally like starting with a weight of 0.7. I've went as low as a weight of 0.3 because my image felt very oversaturated and kind of burnt in. These numbers are not set in stone. You're going to have to play with this for yourself and figure out what works best for you with what you're trying to accomplish. I personally always leave it ending at the full diffusion. That's what that does. So I don't touch any of this. It is connected to these 2 smaller nodes that are going to be collapsed when you open up the workflow. The load IP adapter model, you're going to want to make sure that you have the IP adapter plus stable diffusion 1.5 model in there. If that is not in there, it's not going to work. If you're using stable diffusion XL and hotshot XL, then you're going to need the SDXL model. I personally like 1.5. That's what I'm using there. We can collapse that. You can get that from the IP adapter GitHub page. And then we have this load clip vision. This one is a little difficult and gave me a little trouble because for some reason, when they uploaded this model to Hugging Face, they literally named it model.bin. So, this clip vision model needs to go in the clip vision folder of your ComfyUI directory. If this is not in there, it will break, it will not run. In the description of the video, there will be a link to a Google Drive with that specific clip vision model that you need to run this workflow in it. Go there and download it. At the very top of our node tree, we have our ControlNet group. So you will see that I have created a different group for each individual ControlNet. Each one of these groups has the ControlNet model loader where you will select the ControlNet. You just want to use the one that the group is named after to keep everything consistent and clean. You have your ControlNet preprocessor, which for something like OpenPose has the specific options and settings for that ControlNet, like detect hands, detect body, detect face. And then you have the ControlNet stacker where you actually choose the strength of the ControlNet as well as what part of the diffusion process or of the steps you would like the ControlNet to end at. For most of my control nets, the most I let them run to is 85% of the steps or the diffusion process. With AnimateDiff, you do not need to run your control nets very high to get incredible results. A matter of fact, if you run them too high, they're actually going to restrict your animation and make it a lot less creative and a lot stiffer. So for this particular video, because I'm not doing anything overly complicated and I'm just doing very simple poses with my body, I used open pose and line art. I use open pose to get my character figure red, and then I use line art to get little details about stuff and to kind of glue everything together a little bit more. And yeah, same thing as the LoRAs. Whatever control nets you do not want to use, right-click the group, bypass group nodes, that turns them off. Whatever control nets you do want to use, right-click the group and set group nodes to always. That is different than the LoRAs, which are individual nodes. Since you are bypassing and enabling a whole group, it is bypass group nodes and set group nodes to always. Those are your control nets. Just a side note that for the QR code monster and control GIF control nets, there are no preprocessor nodes for those control nets. They are not needed. So that box only has the control net model selector as well as the control net stacker where you would select the strength and whatnot. I put those two in the same one because they both don't need the preprocessor, and I very rarely use them together. Now, moving from our control nets down to our number 5 group, the sampler or the K sampler. So this is where you're going to find your steps, aka how many iterations of the diffusion process do you want AnimateDiff to go through before it actually gives you your animation, your CFG, which is basically kind of like how much do you want this whole thing to adhere to your prompt. Higher does not always mean better. I personally like using 30 steps with a CFG of 10. Sometimes I lower that down to 7. This is where you select your sampler. I personally like the DPMPP2M-SDE. I can't tell you why. All I can tell you is that it looks better. This is where you select your scheduler. I personally like Karas or Karas or whatever, however that's pronounced. I think it gives a lot more detail and the animations come out nice, crisp, and contrasted. And then you have your denoise strength, which is how strong do you really want this? I like running my animations really high because I like my animations to be animations. So I run it at 1. If you go too low on your denoise or your steps or your CFG in AnimateDiff, you will get blurry outputs. So this is basically what I run all my videos with, and sometimes I change the CFG to 7. So that is your sampler. This primitive node right here is your seed. By default, I have this changed to fixed. So the seed is always the same, so I can reiterate over, like as I'm tweaking my animation and my video to get what I want, it's working off the same seed, which means I can actually see the changes iteratively and not get like a full random video every time. You can change this to randomize, however, and every time you generate, boom, you'll get something completely different based on your prompt. So that is your number 5 box, your sampler. All right, now the K sampler runs into our number 5A group, the ReActor face swap. Now, this is if you have a video that you are doing where your subject is looking at the camera most of the time and it's fairly stable, and you would like to put the subject's actual face or like your face or just a face, a specific face onto the subject. Well, this is the ReActor face swap node. So here we have a face restore model that we have connecting to it, which is also going to help clean it up. But the face swap node right here, these are the default settings in the node, and that will be in the workflow. So I didn't change any of that. The load image, where you load the picture that you would like to put onto your animation, hopefully on the face. This works really great sometimes. If there's a whole lot of movement, then sometimes it just like breaks everything. This face model, I believe, came with this node when I downloaded it as well. So as long as you install these nodes, everything should be there for you. And you can see that my face from my selfie right here, which we're not going to talk about that, it actually really got put on this GigaChad Super Saiyan animation of me really well. Before we get to the outputs though, let's talk about these buttons real quick. The bypass and enable face swap. You are not always going to use the face swapper. I have these easy buttons in some of the larger groups so that you don't always have to right click and bypass. These buttons are linked to these two little nodes right here. And it's super simple. This one is for bypass, this one's for enable. Click the action button, it bypasses the entire group. Click the action button, it turns the entire group on. Easy. So let's move on to number 6, our low res outputs. So this is where the first version of your video is going to get placed. This is the 512 by 896 resolution that we put in the very beginning. I always work in a frame rate of 30. I know this, I always work in a frame rate of 30 because the native frame rate for Instagram is 30 FPS. So I try to keep everything as close to the native for social media as possible. That way it doesn't have to do any compression or alter anything because the platform's compressions are terrible. So frame rate of 30. This format is H.264 or an MP4. And there's nothing I ever really change in here. The only thing you would have to change is the frame rate if you want to do, a frame rate of like 24 for more realistic motion or just less frames. But here is your low res output. This is what I call the preview or the test gallery, or right now it looks more like the peanut gallery. But when I am running my test and I'm trying to figure out what I actually want my final animation to look like, every time I get an output here, I am holding down Alt and dragging, and it creates a copy. And I literally just drag copies into this group right here so I can compare all the things I've gotten. And since we're here, just so you can see, here's what the animation looked like prior to me putting the face swap on it. It just looked like, GigaChad with Super Saiyan hair. But once I actually put the face swap on it, man, it really put my face on there. I mean, I think that looks pretty good, right? No? Okay. Anyways, let's move on to the Upscaler. So this Upscaler is going to be, the settings in your Upscaler are going to be very individual for your video. I can tell you though that these are the settings that I use on most of my upscales. The upscale method is set to bilinear, scale by 1.5. I'm using another 30 steps, this time with a CFG of only 7, with a denoise of 0.7, not 1 like above, 0.7. The same sampler, except my scheduler is exponential. Now, this is going into 7A, which are your upscale inputs. And these width and height boxes are what resolution you want the upscaled video to come out to. So I like getting this at a resolution of 768 by 1344. And then after I get my final video, I will go and I will upscale it in either Topaz or run it through another process in Automatic 1111, which I will detail in my post-process video that I will make in the next week or two. So future video on the post-process and upscaling, but this is the upscaled video you will get. That leads into another face swapper. If you are using the face swapper, same thing, same everything, don't change anything. Just same picture, same values, same everything. And from underneath that, we go into the second round of ControlNets. Now, rule of thumb, use the exact same ControlNets that you used above, and you're either going to want to use the exact same values you used in your first pass or lessen the values by like 0.1 in the strength. And it's also very important that your resolution in these preprocessors says the resolution that you're running the upscale in. So 768. Otherwise, it's going to come out all kinds of messed up if you're running these at a lower resolution, but you're getting an upscaled video. So again, for these, I didn't want to put individual buttons for all of them. You can just right click and set the group nodes to always, or right click and bypass the groups that you are not using. At the most, I only ever use 1 to 2 control nets. So I only ever have 1 to 2 control net groups active. Next to that, you will find the bypass and enable buttons for the actual upscaler in general. So when I am running my 50 frame test, my entire control net group looks like this. It's all purple. I don't run an upscale test until I have the first 50 frames that I'm happy with. I'm like, okay, I think I want to run this. Now let me test the upscale, and then I'll do 50 frames on the upscale. But yeah, your final group here, after you run everything, you're going to get your upscaled video. I have it set to ProRes. This will not give you a video output in the node. You'll have to go into your output folder to see the .move file it will save as. And there is an image save node here. And this image save node here has some code in it that will place it in a nice little folder neatly in your output folder. Shout out to Pixel Pusher for helping me with that one. Some people have errors with the image save node even after they get all of the other node groups installed when they run this workflow. The image save node in your ComfyUI manager, if you go to install custom nodes, you want to type in WAS in the search bar, search, and it is the WAS node suite, or was node suite, however you pronounce it. That is, you will probably have to manually install that one. And then once you install that and restart ComfyUI and boot it back up, this image save node will work. So that is the fix for the image save node. And I think that is the workflow. That should, assuming you have base level ComfyUI knowledge, that should get you up and running and help you understand what you're looking at here a little bit more. You can always come to the Twitch streams every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific that I do on twitch.tv/Civitai, because I work for Civitai.com. And every Thursday we create videos in this, and I walk through projects and I answer questions, so you can come get help from me directly in the Twitch stream. And that's the workflow. I'm going to send this to the sign off right now. If you stuck around this long, I sincerely hope that this video was helpful. This is going to be the first of many. Hopefully these videos can continue to get better. Please like and subscribe if you guys want more about videography, editing, and AI video and animation. I am jboogx. Peace.